Hi, everybody. As Chris said, I'm Dave Davies. I've been covering politics in Philadelphia for, 35 years. And if there's one experience you should have to understand Philadelphia politics, it is to go to Bob Brady's ward headquarters on Election Day. Bob Brady is the chairman of the Philadelphia Democratic Party, Democratic leader of the 40th Ward on Overbrook Avenue. He is a true throwback. He's a 6'3", barrel-chested guy, high school education, grew up as a driver for a city councilman and rose to become chairman of the Democratic Party and has served 20 years in Congress, but he's a relic. He is a head of a old-time political machine. And in a way, there's a kind of democracy there, right? Kind of a transactional democracy, right? He has 30 committee people in his ward. They turn out the vote for the people he supports. And in return, the constituents can come to the committee people. They can use his clout to get the sewer inlet cleaned, the street light fixed. But it's the kind of democracy that tends to give us leaders that are attuned to constituent services, but not so good on policy. And it tends to be run on secret deals, and that's not so good. So it needs the energy of people like Jamie and like Ken Weinstein, and it needs to be nudged in the direction of transparency, right, and accountability. And that's where journalists come in, which is what I've been doing. And in about 2006, I discovered, looking at campaign finance reports, that tens of thousands of dollars were being contributed to a political committee by construction unions, the committee called Unity 2001, which in turn was supporting candidates of Bob Brady's. The weird thing is that this committee, Unity 2001, was not filing reports with the state as required by state law. And when I looked at the committee, it did file reports up to 2002, and guess where the address of the committee was? Bob Brady's ward headquarters. I get in touch with Bob and I say, Bob, what's up with this? And he says, it's not my PAC. I don't know nothing about that PAC. Well, Bob, the address is your ward headquarters. The phone number, I know it by heart, 472-4488. That's the ward headquarters. That's where I used to brief Brady. The only employee of the committee is a full-time employee of Brady's congressional office, Anthony Cacciavellano. Bob, what do you say? Not my PAC. Don't know nothing about it. I look into this, and by the way, Anthony Cacciavellano, the treasurer of the committee, I called him at home, at work. I staked out his house early in the morning, late at night. As far as I know, I never caught a look at the guy. Wouldn't talk to me. But a year later, in December 2006, there's this thing called the Pennsylvania Society where Philadelphia politicians descend on the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York for meetings and receptions. Brady never went. It's not his kind of thing. But that year, because he was getting ready to run for mayor, he was there. He was hanging out in the lobby of the Waldorf. He had all these guys, Brady's guys. And there was a guy sitting in a chair, and I went up to Bob and I said, Bob, that guy over there on the easy chair, who's that? Because I had this feeling it might be Cacciavellano. Brady looks over and says, him? He's the guy you don't know. That was all he would tell me. Here's what's interesting. What I discovered as I looked into this was that in 2002, the McCain-Feingold law has passed, which imposed new limits on federal officials. Bob Brady is in Congress. He is not allowed to have a political committee that accepts $10,000 contributions. It is illegal. This is now a real problem. It's not some little thing with state law. When this became apparent, I suddenly get a hand-delivered letter to my office from Richard Sprague, Uber lawyer of Philadelphia, telling me, Dave Davies, you are preparing a false and defamatory story about Bob Brady, and if you proceed with this, you are in big trouble. That meant that our company lawyers got involved, and so when I wrote the story, and the lead was very clear that up to 2002, when this federal law was passed, this committee, headquarters which was located at Brady's ward headquarters, was filing reports. Suddenly now that Brady can't do that anymore, the money's still flowing, but he stops filing reports. It's a problem with federal law. I make this clear in the lead. The company lawyer looks at it and he says, you know, the problem when I read the story is I can't help but feel that you're saying Brady is doing something wrong. And I'm saying, yes, that is exactly what I'm saying. The story got watered down. Brady realized the jig was up. He hired a lawyer, which filed amended reports so that all of the money was accounted for. And the story, I think, led the paper, and it embarrassed Brady a little bit, but it didn't have the impact that it might have. There was one little there was a discrepancy in some of the reports, and I pointed it out to this lawyer who politely said, yeah, we're going to file amended report within 2 weeks on that. And I ran into Brady in the hallway at City Hall a month later, and I said, Bob, you know, your lawyer, he said he was going to file that amended report. It hasn't been done yet. He says, yeah, they will. And then he looked at me sideways, and he says, nobody cares. Nobody cares. And maybe he's right that a lot of people don't care, but that little effort and that little embarrassment meant that one committee is now telling a piece of the truth that was hidden from the public before, and it's worth it. That's it. Thanks.